Let me ask Ike, what do you make of this verdict? Is this a surprise?
Well, what we saw here is essentially a blow to lose the death penalty. And that's because the state failed to meet the filing deadline for discovery. But nevertheless, the next thing will be sentencing. And the judge has said that Lori's sentencing won't be until at least 3 months from now. And as of now, based on the charges she was found guilty of, she will face a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. Now, as for Chad Daybell, it was decided prior to the trial that both defendants will, in fact, be tried separately. Now, his case isn't expected until possibly June of next year, where he's also facing murder, conspiracy, and grand theft charges for J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan. Now, he's also facing charges for his former wife's death. Kira.
So Ike and Brian, maybe let's take it to you. Let's just give a little background here. This has been a 5-week trial and so many twists and turns within this family, the background of this religious cult that they were involved with. Let's just, for those that haven't been following the trial, Brian, why do you think this became, I guess, such a salacious story across the country? It really does have, I mean, you have children, innocent children that were killed. You have a couple with numerous affairs. This woman charged, now with the killing of her 2 kids. This was her 5th marriage. She had some sort of relationship as they got involved with this religious group. Just give us a little texture to why we are talking about this, Brian.
I think it was really the way that we learned about this story. At first, it started off with 2 missing children. And of course, that is going to be a massive story in of itself. But as we dug a little bit deeper and learned about the Daybells, both Chad and Lori, there were more layers to it that really just made your jaw drop. I mean, you listed some of them. This doomsday belief that some of these children were demons or had spirits in them that need to be casted out. And then we started to learn about while these children were missing, as we first believed them to be, Chad and Lori were off in Hawaii, just enjoying their newfound marriage. Then we heard about Chad's ex-wife who had died what we thought naturally, but then her body gets exhumed and now she's part of one of the guilty convictions against Lori Vallow Daybell. It just become one story after a next. I think independently would have been a huge story in of itself, but combined all together, you got doomsday cult, missing children, divorces, exes that are murdered, and now Chad's got another trial coming up, and even Alex Cox, a brother who died and was supposedly a part of this all. Every way you looked at this case, it was jaw-dropping and shocking.
And Brian, if I can follow up on this, on the religious angle, they believed in end times and demons, and there's ancient traditions in the Christian faith. If people who believe that, they'll kill their kids, obviously. So their beliefs. If the prosecution is correct, and the jury has affirmed the prosecution's case here volubly, but I just wonder if there's a potential issue on appeal. How often do you see prosecutors say, because they believed these religious beliefs, we can encourage you to find them guilty because it was part of their way of looking at the world and the way of looking at their kids. Now, I understand the evidence, I guess, was strong in this regard, but, we are very jealous of our religious freedom in this country.
Yeah. Sorry, that was for Ike. Yeah, it's not a tactic that is typically used. Like you said, we are very protective of religious freedoms in the United States. But I think because of the way that it was woven into this case, Chad Daybell being a person who had written about his unique religious beliefs and the zombies and the demons and the spirits within people that needed to be casted out, I think it made sense when the prosecution came out and said this is about sex, power, and money. And it worked well because of the text messages, the conversations, even some of the family members who knew Lori Vallow Daybell prior to being with Chad and said, this was not on our radar. She was, for all intents and purposes, a very good mother. But when she met Chad, her belief system and her way that she operated as a mother changed drastically. And I think interjecting this religious aspect was necessary to this case to help people understand the impetus and motive behind the murders, the money, and this new lifestyle that they chose.
And Ike, now you've got Lori's husband, Chad Daybell, right? He's also, of course, charged in the children's death here. His trial expected to start this summer. So what do we think? Could the outcome, could we see the similar outcome? Of course, Lori's trial, I'm sure, will impact this as well.
Well, essentially, before this, what they had to do was separate this. We saw that essentially it was decided beforehand that they tried to tell the jury to not try to lump this together. These are separate cases, and it was something that they essentially wanted to just focus on Lori on this one, and then obviously focus on Chad the next. But it's going to be difficult to separate that, obviously, because this was a scheme that included both of these individuals. Now, the instructions for what the jury had to follow, essentially what the state has to prove, it's likely that it'll be similar for both cases. And in this case, we knew that the jury, they were essentially tasked with deciding if Lori and Chad did in fact endorse and advocate religious beliefs just for the purpose of trying to justifying the homicide of J.J. Vallow. Now, we also know that the jury had to decide if Lori Vallow tried to cover up the crime by providing a misleading physical location of J.J. Vallow to investigators when they started that lawful investigation. We also know that the jury has to decide if Lori Vallow either refused to or failed to contact the Social Security Administration. We know that by law, they have to inform them of the deaths of J.J. Vallow or Tylee Ryan, obviously, during the time of their death. That didn't happen. All these things are mounting up into excruciating evidence that clearly saw that guilty verdict for Lori Vallow. So whether or not that plays into any effect in the next trial for Chad, obviously the judge is hoping that isn't the case, but it's hard to assume that this verdict that we just saw here won't weigh heavily on this next case. It's likely that we'll even see some references from this case moving forward, Terry and Kara.
Absolutely. Obviously, the jury will be filtered to make sure that they can provide a fair trial to this man who is to be put on trial despite this verdict. And you do point out that it's the Social Security Administration. You heard the grand theft counts in there. The Social Security Administration is the victim of that theft. It's considered Social Security fraud. If you murder someone, don't tell the government about it, and then collect the money. So that's actually grand theft. We do have a statement from the prosecutors, Madison County Prosecuting Attorney Rob Wood and Fremont County Prosecuting Attorney Lindsay Blake. They obviously say they're pleased with the jury's verdict, want to thank the jurors. They say, given the pending case against the co-defendant, we are unable to conduct any additional interviews, so we don't expect to hear from them. But they want to express, again, sincere appreciation to the many members of law enforcement of the community who tirelessly worked together to hold Lori Vallow Daybell accountable. And Chad Daybell's case is up next.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.